Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa alihi wa sallam. Nainatul Muta'alim. Wa tadhakkar wa tadhkir wa nafl intifa' wa lifada wa istifada. Wal hath wa tamassuk bi kitabillahi sunnati rasulihi sallallahu alayhi wa sallama. Wa du'a ila al-huda wa dilala ala al-khair ibtigha wajhillahi wa mardatihi wa qurbi thawabi subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanaka la ilma la illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alim al-hakim. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العظيم أما بعد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We were just saying at the beginning of the lesson with some students here just to never forget that we should come here with immense happiness, not depressed. Come here inshallah with a big smile on your face, as we're sharing the hadith of Al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, man kharaja yatlabu al-ilm, whoever comes out or departs from his or her home seeking knowledge, كَانَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ حَتَّى أَنْ يَرْجِعَ, that he or she perpetually, for every single moment that they're out, our class is being what? In the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, up until the point that they return. So for the whole moment that you're here, moments I should say that you're here, you're literally in the path of God. That's the kalam of Sadiq al-Masduq, Al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And likewise we shared the hadith, إِنَّ الْمَلَائِكَ لَتَدَعَ أَجْنِهَتِهَا, that the angels literally lower their wings, لِطَالِبِ الْعِلْمِ, just for someone who's seeking knowledge, just for that person only. The one who's seeking knowledge, رِضًا بِمَا يَصْنَعُ, out of the rationale for the lowering of wings is what? And it shows that what the angels have emotions, because they're ecstatic. They're happy at what the student of knowledge is spending his or her time doing. So we should bring these meanings to heart and mind. They should bring us here, inshallah, with a big smile on our face. And may Allah, inshallah, just from His immense fadl, solely by His fadl, and inshallah, hopefully by the intentions of one of our dear brothers and sisters here, accept all of us into that understanding of those hadith, that we believe what he said sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that right from the moment you left your home, and inshallah you brought to heart and mind various intentions, that by the blessings of reading the words of Imam al-Haddad, that Allah alleviate any type of trial or tribulation that you're going through, or any type of ailment is cured, and any type of restriction is now lifted. And likewise, not only that, the immense blessings associated to such spaces envelop all of us, but likewise it overflows into the communities that we belong to. Inshallah, Ameen. And so, to carry on from where we left off, forgive me, I haven't been here for one lesson, and Allah bless our dear Ustad Mohi for taking the lesson last week. We had the immense blessing of, through no effort by ourselves, we were blessed to go to Medina last week. And again, one thing I tend to do, particularly if I have your phone number, is that I'll go through the list of names and make a specific supplication for the students and whoever's on there before the Kaaba, and likewise endeavor to give salams to Al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam from you particularly, specifically, but likewise we remember the students in our supplications anyway. That's something that I found Allah places in the heart of the faqir, to always supplicate for the students that come regularly or irregularly to lesson. So you are in our hearts and minds, and it's, subhanAllah, it's an immense fadl from God that we got to spend time before Al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And subhanAllah, the taqarub al-zaman, the nature of the changing times that we're in, there's always no doubt benefit in any capacity that we get to go to see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and likewise stand before the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there's always moments of reflection that we take as well. And just if we're endeavoring to supplicate for each of you there at those blessed spaces, likewise we ask of ourselves and of yourselves to pray for the ulama, specifically the people of Ahl Sunnah in those lands, because they're going through an extremely difficult time in relation to the barred nature of them holding gatherings of dhikr or lessons or the like. It's a very, very difficult time for them right now, particularly in the last year. And I've had the blessings of from Allah's again immense fadl visiting the Hijaz on numerous occasions, but I think this is the worst time in the last decade that I've seen in relation to the pressure that's on the people of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, specifically from the Sunni tradition. And so one of the supplications which is responded to and accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is when you make the du'a la dhahr al-ghaib, i.e. that you make the supplication not in the presence of those you are supplicating for. That's one of the, inshallah, the surefire ways that a supplication is answered. And again, the disequilibrium of the time is that, you know, you can go to the Hijaz or you can go to the peninsula to a boxing match or to a concert, but you can't go to a gathering of dhikr or to a lesson now. In qalabat al-amur, things are now turned upside down. And so from that side, obviously the eye wept and the heart breaks. But, you know, we are people who are immensely optimistic and never ever again diminish the power of your supplications. That you should supplicate for these people because they supplicate for you. That's one thing I can promise you. And they will tell, when we had those meetings with the likes of Sheikh Muhammad Noor and all of these great people, men of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they always ask about you. How are the brothers and sisters in the UK doing? And let them know that we are supplicating for them. And again, the faqir's personal belief, it's really by the blessings of their sincere, connected supplications that we get all of the blessings we get in our lives. I have no doubt in my mind about that whatsoever. That it's their supplications that again, you know, traverse the globe and land upon our tainted, soiled hearts. So we ask you to pray for them as well. And as Allah says, Nasru min Allah wa fatun qareeb. There's no doubt that victory from God is at hand and it's close. And so may Allah inshallah preserve and safeguard the ulama of the Hijaz and the ulama and the Salihin wherever they are, from the east to the west of this planet. And Allah bless us inshallah to inshallah one day gather like here in the masjid of Al-Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Medina to recite the Mawlid there inshallah. It's close, it's coming. Marhaban. So just to continue where I left off, we had concluded speaking about Dawr al-Shabab, i.e. the stage of one's youth. And we said it was an interesting comment in that Imam al-Haddad is focusing on what? The immense energy that Allah places in the youth. So it's a time of what? A time of absolute increase. But it's only a time of increase, again, that he tied the success of the youth with the onus being upon the guardian or parent to make sure that they place a path for the youth to traverse. Because he said youth, and we said that the word shabab, shababa, who remembers what the word shababa means from last lesson? What did I say shababa comes from? Sorry? Writing love letters. So it's amazing when Suhail speaks. Writing love letters. So it shows that someone in that marhala, that stage of their life, they're emotive beings. And even how the Prophet ﷺ, Inna Allaha la yu'jab min shaban laysa lahu sabwa, that God is astonished at a shab, a youth that doesn't have these passions or these desires. Which is why again he emphasizes in a large passage of this chapter about what? The guardian must now step in and re-examine and reiterate the obligations upon the child in terms of what is binding and lawful and impermissible upon him or her, but actually highlight what the weighty nature of this now. Why? Because they've now moved from being infants and now they're in this stage of they're being shabab, that they're shab, and then the shab goes on to being what? The age of the shab is what? The age of the shab being from pubescence, so definitely from the age of 15, or in our school from the age of 15, irrespective of whether those biological signs are there. Once someone reaches the age of 15, now their class is what? Pubescent. So now they're shabab, up until the age of what? Around 35. Okay, so when we're still in the second life, and Imam al-Haddad breaks the second life into five. So this one stage in the lives of man is broken down into what? 5 stages. So we spoke about what? Infancy. And then we spoke last lesson about being a shab. And now he's going to speak about what? Maturity, called kuhula. And so we're on page 22 of the book, where the translation on page 22, maturity, a young person then moves on to the age of maturity. So you're moving again. Remember we spoke about what? And we said this, an important point to note last week was what? That we don't tend to mark stages of a person's life. Where traditional communities, they mark stages of a person's life. When someone becomes baligh, in traditional societies, it's like a ceremony is held to let them know that they're moving now from the stage of what? Infancy, and now to a stage of pubescence, where this word taklif, someone now is charged with sacred law. And we can look at it from the aspect of what, like I said last lesson, that taklif, we can look at it through the Urdu, which I don't recommend you to do, because taklif has what? There's a difficulty associated to it, isn't it? And the difficulty is associated in terms of the religious context. Why? Because now sacred law applies to you. But we said that taklif comes from the word kalif. And we said that what? The hadith of Sayyidina Umar, Inna Uthman la kalifun bi aqaribihi. That Uthman is kalif in relation to his relations. Kalif means what? Shadid al-hub. That he's overtly loving towards his family. So why do we mention that? Words are important, because taklif, the responsibility that now is you're charged with, comes from a place of love. Adhering to the sacred, understanding sacred law, it stems from a place of Allah's love of you. So we spoke about taklif, and then he says that a young person then moves from this stage to an age of maturity, which seeks the peak of one's lifetime and the attainment of one's full power. Ibn Jawzi divides the human lifespan into 5 periods. I'm reading here from the text, or the translation of the text, page 22. Ibn al-Jawzi, rahmatullahi alayhi, divides human lifespan into 5 periods. The first is as-siba, childhood, which ends at the age of 15. The second is as-shabab, youth, which extends to the age of 35. The third is kuhula, which we're speaking about today, maturity, which ends at the age of 50. The fourth is shaykhuha, seniority, which ends at the age of 70. And obviously there's conversation in and around this. And then the fifth is kibr, decrepitude, when you start to fully form back to where you become childlike again, dependent again, which terminates in death. Other scholars provide more or less similar divisions. So he's saying here, obviously there's conversation in and around this. So at the peak of one's faculties and maturity, one may expect to attain wisdom. So now when you're moving from the stage of being a shab to the stage of being a kahil, maturity, now he's saying that wisdom is now granted to one, which God gives to those fit to receive it. Repentance and return to God predominate for the fortunate bondsman who has God's caring eye upon him. In terms of what? Because, you can see here at one level my, maybe unhealthy obsession with words. And so we're speaking about what? Kahula, kahil. Iktahala in Arabic, so they say iktahala nabat, that the plants iktahala. So this word kahil or kuhula, i.e. maturity, it's applied to plants. But when do they apply this word iktahala nabat to plants? When the plant starts to dry out, when it starts to wither. Which means what? If he's saying that when you're kahil, you're 35, between 35 and 40, now you're starting to wither out. I.e., now you should, as Imam al-Haddad said, you're thinking now about what? Your sole focus from 35 onwards should be thinking about death. That should be a predominant thought in your heart, a predominant occupation. Allah bless, me and Doc were just speaking about the importance of what? Washing the deceased. Because we know that our Prophet ﷺ, Zur al-Qabur fa innaha tudhakkirukum al-akhirah. Amr, imperative from Al-Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Visit the graves. Why? Because it helps you to recall the afterlife. And that's a general thing which is open to everyone. There's no training that anyone requires to go and visit a grave. Of course, there's a training from the aspect of knowing the adab, the etiquettes of visiting someone who's passed away. But it's not like you have to go through a training program to what? Visit someone who's passed away. However, you need a training program for what we were speaking about. How do you wash someone who's passed away? And experientially, there's a vast difference between the spiritual experience you have of visiting a grave and the spiritual experience you have engaging someone who's passed away, touching a dead body, seeing a dead body, alternating a dead body, particularly if it's someone who was what? Who was close to you. And so we're supposed to be here at the age of 35. If you reach 30, 35, iktahal al-nabat, now you're starting to wither, because we spoke about being shab was what? That energy, that zeal that you have. Think of sports people. Ordinarily, although it's somewhat changing, ordinarily their careers are over when? At this age, isn't it? Because that strength isn't there anymore. You can't fight Father Time. So now you start to wither, now you start to dry. And that means in relation to even your constitution. Babies are what? Moist in terms of their disposition, their constitution. As you get older, you start to dry out. So it's an apt phrase to use. But here he's speaking about what? It coincides when you come to this tipping point, now your intellect, the wisdom, because prophecy was bestowed upon Al-Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam at the age of what? At the age of 40. So he's tying it in with what? This specific marhala with wisdom now. And so he says here that a young person moves from the age of maturity, and we spoke about the five stages of this life. And like I said, that even within this life of man, think about those various different stages. And mark those stages in your life, and mark those stages in the lives of your children. We had a lesson with Allah Sheikh Suhail Hanifi came and taught a hadith class in London last week. And he was speaking about how when someone's balig, and he said, likewise, he said the age of 15, where someone is deemed pubescent by sacred law. He goes, I wondered why God waited for 15 years to now make a person what? Now his deeds are written. Because prior to you becoming pubescent, your deeds are not written. Why is there such a long period of time? And he was giving a comment on a hadith where he's speaking about the nature of speech. And how sacred law at one level, it's all anchored upon what emanates from your tongue. Marriage contract is not about a written contract, it's about what? Ijab al-qabul, acceptance, offer and acceptance, which emanates from the tongue. Financial contract is all about what? What emanates from the tongue. So he's saying that from birth to the age of 15, a person had better get it right. So it's like you've had 15 years of training to know how to speak. But that's only if, again, you've come through a particular system. Just like here, when he's going to speak about the nature of being what? The nature of being mature. How many a man and woman do we see who are over 40 that we could apply immaturity to? Because they haven't gone through a religious system. Be that at home, or be that in a particular seminary, or be that in a particular environment that's allowed them to mature, allow them to be a springwell of wisdom. And so, at the peak of one's faculties and maturity, one may expect to attain wisdom, which God gives. And these are very, very specific words that Imam al-Haddad is saying. That look at the way he's saying God gives, because he's going to anchor it what? In a particular verse from the Quran which is coming up. But I think what's weighty and worrisome is the next line. It's clear at this age of 35, when you're kahil, if a person is intended for good or evil. At 35, what's he saying? If you haven't figured it out by 35, you are who you are now. And we're speaking in what in terms of norms. That once you've had 35 years of life experience, 35 years of opportunity to train the soul, 35 years in terms of opportunities to get it right, that if you haven't, here at the age of 35, it's clear at this age if a person is intended for good or evil. I.e., that's the direction or the path someone is taking. For there are certain signs which appear, which he'll speak about. Okay. Now, when we say we're speaking in norms, it's important because for me that's a weighty statement. It's like that's the direction you're taking. And there's a hadith he's going to, inshallah, next week we'll take the lesson of shaykhuha when someone is 60. And there's hadith which will cause your hairs to go grey in terms of God's displeasure at a person if he's sinning at the age of 60, because it's just so unbefitting. It's so unbefitting for a person who reaches 50 plus, and now he's a person that's just replete with sin. And so here, La ilaha illallah Rasulullah, that at this age it's about getting it right. But like I said, Imam al-Haddad, he's using very specific words. Why? Because they speak in the what? In the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They speak in the Quran. And so he's saying, when he says here what? Someone is expected to attain wisdom which God gives. Okay? And that's an important part, because look at the verses that he brings on page 22-23. وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدُّهُ آتَيْنَاهُ. So he's saying here about kahil, this marhala, this stage when you're now mature. And the corroboration of that maturity is in these two verses. What is that marhala? What is that stage? فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدُّهُ. When someone has attained his prime, when he's reached this particular age, and here we're speaking about age 35 to 40, آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا, that we have now given this person hikmah, wisdom, which it's different to what ilm. And if you remember, what did we define ilm as on the tongue of the great Imam Malik radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, Imam Dar al-Hijrah? He says, العلم نورا يقذف في القلب يميز به بين الحق والباطل. That he defines knowledge as what? A light. You know, the big Sufi that Imam Malik was, Nur. So he says, ilm is what? Knowledge is what? He doesn't say it's yani kathrat riwayat. It's like who knows all of these narrations and memorizations and like, no, it's a light, but cast in the heart by who? By Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now someone can now discern between right practice or right, what is truthful and what is false. Whereas hikmah, it's reaching a stage of which he'll define, but it allows us to what? When someone is blessed with hikmah, with wisdom, what happens? Sin just decreases exponentially. And so he's saying here that وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدُّهُ عَتَيْنَهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا وَكَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. The important part I'm anchoring here is what? The verse is what? لَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدُّهُ. When someone now is blessed to reach this particular age of maturity, آتَيْنَاهُ. We give him. Pay attention to those two words. نَحْنُ آتَيْنَاهُ. We give him. Because the mind of the shab, the youth is what? You know, I got this. This came from my effort. We all know the famous narrative about the person yani from Bani Israel, yani Abd Allah. He worshipped Allah subhanahu for 500 years. Yawm al-Qiyamah, ماذا يقال له? What's said to him on the Day of Judgment? Allah says, "Udkhul Jannah bi rahmati." Enter paradise by virtue of my mercy. And so the response by this, again, individual, someone who is what? 500 years dedicated his life to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what? وَعَمَلِي يَا رَبْ. Meaning you're saying, oh, you know, enter Jannah by your mercy. What about my action? 500 years. Stupid. I always say this, isn't it? If Allah says enter Jannah, just run. Run towards the gates. And so he says what? He says, وَعَمَلِي يَا رَبْ. What about my action? And again Allah says, what? أُدْخُلِ الْجَنَّةِ بِرَحْمَتِي. Enter Jannah through my mercy. وَعَمَلِي يَا رَبْ. 500 years. What is he? حَاسِبُوهُ. Okay, let's call him to account. Put all of his good deeds on one side of the scales, and now just put the blessings of the eye on the other side. And so they start to enumerate the blessings of the eye until it what? Outweighs all of the good deeds of this individual. 500 years. And so he turns to Allah, "Bi rahmatik ya Rabbi, rahmatik." By your mercy, O Allah, by your mercy. And so Here, آتَيْنَاهُ, don't think that you have got this. Of course you have to put effort in. We're not a stupid people. We don't think that, things come without any form of effort. I was watching this video on archery, Korean archery, many years ago. And Korean archery, mashallah, it's very interesting in terms of, firstly, the efforts that they put in. They don't allow you to touch a bow for 2 years. 2 years you're practicing on the bands. How many of us could have sabr for 2 years before we get allowed to pick up the bow? And so the person was saying that this master of archery is saying that archery is 70% luck and 30% effort. But he goes that 70% luck is predicated upon that 30% effort. Yeah? That's a similar analogy to how we look at things. All goodness, all physical prowess, sagacity, al-akhiri, comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it requires effort from us. And so here he's speaking about what? That someone reaches this stage, now they're blessed with what? Hikmah, wisdom and knowledge, i.e. from Allah. Or another verse from the Quran, which he brings, the second verse on the same page, حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغَ أَشُدُّهُ, again when someone attains full strength with a prime, وَبَلَغَ أَرْبَعِينَ سَنَةً. So again the verse here qualifies that when does someone attain their prime, when does someone get full strength, intellectual prowess, وَبَلَغَ أَرْبَعِينَ سَنَةً, when they reach the age of 40. قَالَ رَبِّي أَوْزِعْنِي أَنْ أَشْكُرْ نِعْمَتَكَ. The response is that, oh, my Lord inspired me to give shukr. Again here what? Not that he gave shukr, that my Lord inspired me at this age to what? Be shakir. Show gratitude to him. التي نعمت علي وعلى والدي ونعمل صالحا ترضاه. To the extent that now I work or do good works that please you. And so this age of 40 now, which is in this marhala of what? Being kahil. This age of maturity. The ulama say that what does it mean to reach the age of intellectual maturity at age of 40? أي تناهى عقله وكمل فهمه وحلمه. That now someone's intellect is fully formed. That at 40 it should be, let's say, because that's how they define it. That at 40 your intellect now should be fully developed. The path of learning goes on. Minil mahad il-lahad, from the cradle to the grave. But in relation to now someone's how they deal with things, how they understand things, how they reflect upon things, and we should be people who reflect. Tanaha aqalahu, now someone's intellect has matured. Wa kamla fahmuhu, and likewise his understanding. Wa hilmahu. Hilm is what? Someone who's halim. The Prophet said, Yakad and yakun halim nabiyan. It's as if someone who's blessed with hilm, someone who's halim, it's as if they're a prophet. What's hilm? To have forbearance with people, to have sabr with people, to overlook people's, not respond in a reactionary manner. That someone who's blessed with being halim, it's as if they're a prophet. And so this comes into what? This age of maturity at the age of 40. And here now, if someone is blessed with what? Hikmah, wisdom. And again, same thing that comes up in those verses comes up again in the verses of what? Being blessed with being hakim. Where Allah says, yu'ta hikmah min yasha. Allah gives hikmah to whoever, wisdom to whoever He pleases. So again, the understanding being inculcated in someone's mind, and more importantly in their heart and soul, is again God telling you, we give you hikmah. Conduct yourself in a particular way, be upright, make the effort, and we're going to now fill this vessel. And we're going to fill it with what? This blessing of hikmah. Because he goes on to say what in the Quran? وَمَنْ يُؤْتَ الْحِكْمَةَ فَقَدْ أُوتِيَ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. And if you've conducted yourself in a way that you've allowed yourself to be a recipient from the hikmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَمَنْ يُؤْتَ الْحِكْمَةَ, and whoever is given hikmah, فَقَدْ أُوتِيَ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا, then they've been blessed with an immense amount of good. But the mafhum al-mukhalafa, the contrasting understanding is what? If you haven't conducted yourself in a manner that's befitting of this particular tradition, if you're still in your mind and your heart as shab at the age of 35, 40, 50, you're still immature, you're still a child or childlike, then you're barring yourself min khair kathir, from this immense good. وَمَنْ يَذْكُرُ إِلَّا أُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. And only the people who remember this are the people of what? Inner core. أُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. And in another verse, هُوَ أُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ الَّذِينَ يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهِ. That your Lord tells you, again, these are like Quranic definitions. We all aspire to be people who have some type of like insight into affairs. We all aspire to be people that, inshallah, as we mature, our understandings mature. And that particular group or echelon or category of people in the Quran are known as what? Ulul Albab. And in another verse, Allah describes who they are. Who's Ulul Albab? Alladhini yadhkurun Allah. Those are the people of dhikr. Be a person of dhikr. Allow your tongue to be preoccupied. Allow your heart, your mind, your soul to be preoccupied. And never forget that although we were speaking, if we go back a little bit, about the norm, he's saying here the norm is what? You've been on a direction of your life, 35 years now. It's pretty clear where you're going to go. But we are people likewise of optimism, which means what? No matter what you have done in your life, it is never too late. No matter how much you've sinned, no matter how much you feel you're not someone who's blessed to be a recipient of God's mercy, it is never ever too late. It is never too late. And we have example after example after example, whether we speak about examples from the prophetic traditions or we speak about examples from the great men and women of Allah, that at a particular stage in their life, at what we'd class as advanced in years, they now turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is nothing that you can do, no sin that you have perpetrated surpasses the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No foul, heinous crime you've committed is more or greater than what? The forgiveness and love that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows to you on a perpetual basis. And that's our belief, and we live and die by that. We live and die by that understanding. There's nothing that I can do, there's nothing that I have said, irrespective of the regret, remorse and hurt you feel about having transgressed against the being that sustains you, that loves you, that blesses you, allows you to breathe, allows you to eat, allows you to dress, decrees for you good, that there's nothing that is heinous that is in comparison to His forgiveness. Shattana bainahuma. They're vastly different. Even when we think about good things, irhamu man fil ard yarhamukum man fis sama. Display mercy, your Lord tells you, to people on this earth, and Allah will display mercy to you. No matter how much you do good, no matter how much mercy you display to someone, it's nothing in comparison to the mercy that Allah displays to you every given second of your life. And then inshallah, the mercy when it truly matters. And particularly us as people of La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah rahmatan lil alameen. Our nisbah to Him is the greatest thing that we cling on to in our lives. There's nothing more precious. Not your son, not your father, not your mother, not your child. Nothing. The greatest thing you're going to have is this habal, this unshakable, unbreakable link you have just by fact that you're a person of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah to Al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And know because of that, He's going to fight tooth and nail for you. Ya abati, to Abu Talib, kul kalimatan, say a word that if you say it, I'll contest on your behalf Yawm al-Qiyamah, on his deathbed. Just say it. Doesn't matter what's happened before. Doesn't matter how much you've sinned. Doesn't matter what you've said. Doesn't matter what you've done. Just say this word. Sadiqan min qalb. Momentarily, sincerely from the heart, and I've got you, and I will fight for you Yawm al-Qiyamah. That's the biggest blessing that we have. But he's speaking likewise here in terms of what norms. And the norm is that people, if they put an effort to adopt a particular direction in their life, that's an indication of where they are heading. Doesn't mean what? Doesn't mean that you can't change. But if someone is blessed with hikmah, and he says al-hakim, فَهُوَ شَخْصٌ عَاقِلٌ, the hakim, the wise one, is someone who is a person of sagacity, يُرَجِّهُ الْعُمُورِ نَحْوَ الصَّوَابِ, that is able to judge matters in relation to what is correct, بما امتلكه من الخبرات, based on what? Life experience. So now you've had 35, you're moving into 40, you've got all of this experience. And inshallah, you've been on a path in the right direction because of this khibra, because of this now experience, life experience that you have. You're able now to discern between what is correct and incorrect. عبر تجاربه في الحياة, through your life experiences. Right? And this is why Al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wasallam said what? What's hikmah in relation to the property of a believer? It's his or hers. Al-hikmah dalatul mu'min. Meaning he's saying to you, seek it out because it's yours. It belongs to you. Those aren't, arbitrary words. Al-hikmah dalat man. Hikmah belongs to who? حيثما وجدها فهو حق به. Wherever he or she finds it, he has more right over it. If you're a person of Iman, it's yours for the taking. So seek it out. And realize that when you find it, show shukr. Sayyidina Ali used to say what? أنا عبد من علمني حرفا صرت له عبدا. Whoever teaches me one letter, I become subservient to that person. So when you're blessed with what? Learning something, when you're blessed with seeking out things which through either life experiences, lessons or the like start to transform you, show shukr. Because it's a sign that Allah wants immense good for you. Just as we started off this lesson by saying what? Yeah, angels are ecstatic over you being here. Just think about that for a moment. That emotive state of an angel being happy, lowering his wings whilst you're en route or whilst you're here or beyond. Right? These are an immense blessing, so show shukr. And shukr, what is shukr? Oh, Luton. Bismillah. Is it okay to drink this? We're just saying here. Bismillah. It's on your head, Abdul Qadir. So if I'm saying to you, be shakir, show shukr, what is shukr? And you know why I'm asking you, don't you? Why am I asking you? Raise your voice. I'm going to just finish that sentence because I've told you enough times. It's all linked, isn't it? We're speaking about what? Taib, act in a way, Allah's going to bless you. Conduct yourself in a way, and now He'll fill this vessel of your mind, your soul, your heart with hikmah. If He does this, or when inshallah He does this, be a person of shukr. That you're not like every other fool that's, alhamdulillah, on a Friday night. We know what the norm is in our communities. You're blessed that you're not out there. You're blessed that you're not doing things that every other person is doing. So from that aspect, you have been elected or selected by God Himself. Show shukr. And I'm saying show shukr. What? What is shukr? Say that again. Exactly. I'll paraphrase. Using every single thing. What shukr? You want to be shakir? You want to be grateful? It's using every single thing that God has blessed you with. Health, wealth, money, ila akhirihi. For the purpose for which you were created. That's shukr. Every single thing, every single cell in your body, every single energy, every single breath that you have, you're placing it in what? Service to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's shukr. And so if you're blessed with hikmah, let that result in what? Shukr. And then he says here that again, being with the hukama, what did the Prophet say? Khalitul hukama in a hadith. Mix with the people who are wise. And the benefit, like we said, of that is what? That you will see your sin, your propensity to sin, I should say, starts to what? Wane until it's gone. There's no desire to sin once you're around people that are blessed with what? Wisdom. One of the greats of our tradition, Al-Hajjaj ibn Abdullah Al-Hakami, he said that تركت المعاصي والذنوب 40 سنة, that I abandoned or left sin for the period of 40 years. So again, 40 years a stage of training. But why? حياء من الناس. because out of embarrassment before people. For 40 years he didn't sin. It's good not to sin, but he's saying for 40 years I didn't sin for embarrassed about being caught out by people. Now he gets it after what? 40 years. ثُمَّ تَرَكْتُهَا. Then I left sin after the age of 40. Why? حَيَاءً مِنَ اللَّهِ. So it took him 40 years to get there. It's all good, wasn't it? Because he wasn't sinning before. But the rationale of that not sinning is not the same as after the age of 40. Now he has haya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we can encapsulate this concept of having modesty or shyness before Allah in what? One word. Ihsan. Why? أَن تَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ. Because now you're walking on this earth in a way that what? You are fully aware of God's gaze upon you. That's ihsan. And the logical conclusion here is what? That when you are cognizant, aware, awake, that God's gaze is upon you, how are you going to sin? How are you going to want to sin? How are you going to allow those thoughts to enter your heart? Ba'id. It's far. And ihsan's the goal. That's what we're trying to move towards as the days and months and years pass us by. We're trying to walk on this earth bil ihsan, with ihsan, in that we are fully cognizant Allah's gaze is upon you, and more importantly, inna Allah la yanzur ila surikum wa la ajsadikum. Hadith Sahih Muslim. God's gaze is not upon your outward forms, walakin yanzur ila qulubikum wa amalikum. Use those. I'm laughing. I used to get the train to work, and I used to drive to work and get the train to work. And mashallah, women are amazing in terms of how they can drive and put makeup on at the same time. It's just a skill that you should. I actually used to applaud when I used to see, she's driving, looking. I'm like, how is she still alive? Right? On the train as well. That's like there's no shyness. They pull out and just put. I was like, hey, but people are here. Does it not bother you that you're doing this in front of everyone? Because they're trying to perfect what? The outward form. With no shyness. There's no shyness in perfecting the outward form. The gaze of God is not on your lipstick. Sheikh Ibrahim says what? Who wears lipstick? He goes, clowns. What was I saying? Naam, exactly. So don't just perfect. Marhaban, it's good to look good. As Muslims, you should be looking pleasant with the intention of da'wah ila akhirih. But don't allow that to predominate your time and effort at the expense of what? The gaze of God. That's ihsan. And so we'll conclude with, I think, two or three more statements. The first is of Ibn Rajab, who says, قال بعد العلماء الحكمة إصابة لما يرضي الله وبما يحبه. That what is hikmah? Because we're speaking about wisdom. It's to get right that which Allah is pleased by and which Allah loves. I.e. what? Align your hearts, your desires with what He wants. Align your aspirations in life with what Allah wants. Align your hopes and desires in life with what your Prophet ﷺ wants. That's hikmah. وَتَرْكُ مَا يَسْخَطُهُ وَيَكْرَهُهُ وَلَا يَنَالُ ذَلِكَ إِلَّا بِرِقَّةِ الْقَلْبِ وَصَفَائِهِ. And to abandon that which causes or gives rise to the displeasure and anger of Allah, and this can only be achieved through a soft and pure heart. Which means what? A harsh-hearted person will never be someone who's intelligent. A harsh-hearted person will never be someone who's hakim. And it's important here to, again, throw your limited aql to the wayside. I was having a conversation with someone recently about forgiving people. And the question that kept on coming from this person was what? But if you always forgive people, don't they deem you as weak? You're always forgiving people, if those who've taken advantage of you, so then won't you be seen as a pushover? Dave, was your Prophet a pushover? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Antum tulaqa la tathrib alaykum. particularly when he could have taken what? Exacted revenge from a position of outward strength. He was always from a position of strength, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But from a position of outward strength, when he could have exacted revenge on the Quraysh, on the conquest of Mecca, what does he say? La tathriba alaykum. There's no blemish on you this day. Antum mutlaqa, you're free to go. Was he a pushover? We shouldn't even put those words together. I.e., leave your intellect to the side and allow yourself to have what? A prophetic intellect. So someone who's harsh-hearted here, لا ينال ذلك إلا برقة القلب. You want to be someone who conforms to God's pleasure, conforms to that which He loves. Allow yourself to be pure and clean-hearted. A harsh-hearted person is an unintelligent person. فَمَنْ كَانَ أَسْفَى قَلْبًا فَإِنَّهُ أَحْسَنُ إِدْرَاكًا. Here he's telling you exactly that. Whoever has the purest of hearts has the greatest intellect. Whoever has the softest of hearts has the greatest intellect. أَحْسَنُ إِدْرَاكًا وَأَشَدُّ إِصَابَةً. And he's the most on point. And then he concludes by saying what? At the page 23. At the age of 40, God's messenger received revelation and became an envoy to all of mankind. So at this particular age, Allah blessed Al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wasallam with prophecy and being what? An envoy, a Rasul to the entire corpus of humanity, from his time to the last. Bashiran wa nadhira, a bearer of good tidings and warning. And it becomes clear at this age whether a particular person, like we said, is destined for good or evil, virtue or corruption, for there are certain signs that appear to predominate to the extent that if, as we have said, a man has attained the age of 40 and the goodness in him has not become dominant over his evil, the devil rubs his face and cries, a face that will never succeed. Wa'iyadhu billah. It is also said that whoever reaches 40 without the goodness in him having become dominant over his evil, look at this, what he's saying. Read this statement again. It is also said, this is Imam al-Haddad saying this, it's also said, whoever reaches 40, and many of us are beyond 40, without the goodness in him having become dominant over his evil, should prepare himself for the hellfire. That's a weighty statement. It's a very weighty statement. You've reached 40 and you're still allowing the stupidity within you to run amok. You're still allowing sin to overcome good works. You're still not placing yourself in service to religion. You're still not trying to learn or better yourself or the state of your family. And you're preoccupied with wealth. You're preoccupied with family beefs. You're preoccupied with all of these types of stupidities. Let him prepare himself for the fire. Wa'iyadhu billah. And he gives the example and conclusion of a number of things. He goes, Imam Sha'rani said what? Our oaths were taken that when we reached 40, so they would actually take an oath. The great Imam Sha'rani, Abdul Wahhab Sha'rani, our oaths were taken that when we reached 40 years of age, we would fold up our sleeping mats, except when overpowered by sleep. So now sleep is our enemy, because 40 is what? Like we said, Yabis, on that turning point, heading towards death. So at the age of 40, we took an oath we would fold up our sleeping mats and remain constantly aware with each breath that we are travelers to the hereafter. It's literally now, but you're going to see he's going to bring us at the age of 50, that if someone gave a 50-year-old, in a traditional sense, a gift like a monetary gift or the like, that she found offense to it. Because they've got one foot in the grave, or one foot in the akhirah, we should say. And so, fold up the sleeping mats and we were travelers. And he brings two statements on page 24. The one of the great Imam Malik, that Imam Malik, people learn till the age of 40 and spend the rest of their lives implementing it. What if we don't learn? That's a good opinion of Imam Malik, isn't it? That for 40 years people have spent their lives learning and now they're just trying to perfect and implement everything that they learn. What if people don't learn? What if they never learn? What if they never attended a lesson? What if there's no even occurrence or thought to the heart or mind to try and better themselves? And that's many a Muslim. We're not speaking about people who aren't of our faith. Many people has no desire. In fact, not only that, they dissuade people from attending. Why do you need to attend a lesson? Just go to the mosque on Jummah. We're all good, we eat halal food. Let's order some now. And dissuading youth from what? Placing themselves in such spaces. Look at his position here. People learn until they're 40. That's a wonderful world view from a wonderful heart, from a beautiful heart. Many of us have, we know the realities of our communities. And so, what's the onus on you all in this room today or yesterday or the week before or moving forward? You have to be a conduit of khair for someone. You have to be someone that hustles, that places effort to bring people, I'm not saying to this particular lesson, but definitely what? If you've been blessed, what, you don't want other people to be blessed? You don't want to encourage someone? You think, oh, I can't, who am I to call to a lesson? Who am I to... You don't have that luxury. And then he brings another statement by the great Imam Shafi'i. May Allah be pleased with both of them. He said that at the age of 40 he walked with a cane. Why? لِأَذْكُرْ إِنِّي مُسَافِرٌ. This cane reminds me that I'm a traveler. That now it's just preparation for what? The next life. And then look at the Prophet's statement, which I don't think we've taken this particular statement, although we've taken a lot of statements about the Prophet speaking about dunya, where he says, Mali wa lidunya. Meaning, it's like saying, what on earth do I have in it? What type of connection? I have no connection to this dunya. Mali wa lidunya. I got no connection to this place. Remember we took the hadith, حُبِّبَ عَلَيَّ مِن دُنْيَاكُمْ. That things have been beloved, have been made beloved to me from your dunya. He doesn't attribute the dunya to himself. Here, look, Mali wa lidunya. What do you think? You think I've got any relationship to this world? إِنَّمَا مِثْلِي وَمِثْلَ dunya. The likes of me in relation to this ephemeral existence, كَالرَّاكِبْ إِسْتَدَلَّ تَحْتَ الشَّجَرَةِ. It's like someone who's just riding and he takes momentary shade underneath a tree. ثُمَّ رَاهَ وَتَرَكَهَا. Then he just moves on and just leaves it. That's a moment. إِسْتَدَلَّ تَحْتَ الشَّجَرَةِ i.e. ثُمَّ رَاهَ. That's his relationship at best, we can say. At best to this dunya. That's someone that understands what? That's true safar, isn't it? That's travel. That's travel. We want to be immersed and live, and who's that in the news recently, that person trying to live till he's forever or spending £1 million a year trying to, prolong his life. Ghurur. Why would you want to? When we die, it's supposed to be alhamdulillah. Whew, I'm glad that's over. Good luck, the rest of you. Ma salama. Don't call me, I'll call you, somehow. We're supposed to be, alhamdulillah, that's over and done with. Because look at the word, Mali wa lidunya. What do you think? I've got any type of relationship to this world? At best, I can say I'm just going to take shade for a moment and move on. That's my relationship with this dunya. وَهُوَ أُسْوَةُ الْحَسَنَةِ. That's your example, that's your model, that's your personification, that's supposed to be the person you're supposed to be following. And then he concludes with a statement by the great Muhaddith Wahhab ibn Munabbih, who says what? He goes that, may Allah show him mercy, I have read somewhere that every single morning a herald announces from the fourth heaven, O people of 40, you are a crop whose harvest is close, meaning your time's close. O people of 50, what have you sent ahead and what are you trying to keep hold of or keep back? O people of 60, you have no excuse. And you're going to see this one, inshallah, next week when we do the lesson of seniority, where someone becomes a sheikh, linguistically. Because he doesn't say, what are you doing? O people of 60, you have no excuse. No excuse now, at 60. The hour has come to you, so be aware. Tayyib, inshallah. We're going to stop here. Is there any questions? So the ulama say that there's a hadith where the Prophet said, Khalitul Hukama. So he's given an amr, an encouragement, or an imperative to be around the people of hikmah. And so the comment on the hadith about if someone is either blessed with hikmah or they're around people with hikmah, how does it affect their being, their soul? And they say that they will want to ward away, turn themselves away from sin. And so there's a relationship between either being blessed with hikmah or being around people who are hakim, in that your personal sin will start to what? Wane until it diminishes, until inshallah it's gone. طيب بارك الله فيكم جزاك الله خير السلام عليكم